Alright, kids, so I want to do a real quick video about the new Thor Ragnarok trailer that came out yesterday, because it has captured my imagination in ways that I didn't, well, no, I expected it to, because it was my most anticipated comic book movie. No, hell, most anticipated movie. But it's got such stark competition, though. Stark, get it, because it's a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. But, it's whatever, fuck it. It's one of my most anticipated upcoming movies of the year. I mean, at the same time, we got a Star Wars, though. We got a fucking Planet of the Apes movie coming. Other stuff. Spider-Man, Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Justice League. I mean, this is a big year. But above all of that, before even I saw this trailer, Thor Ragnarok stuck out to me as the one that I was like, I want to fucking see that in a movie theater, son. And the reason why is very simple. One, it's got the Hulk in it, and I'm like, there day one. Because the Hulk is my favorite comic book character of all time, and I will see, read, watch anything that has the Hulk in it. Or at least if it's like, if he's in it for any kind of extended period. I didn't watch or finish that Avengers Confidential animated movie that had the Hulk in it, and I didn't finish that because I was like, where's the Hulk? And he didn't show up, and the rest of it was really bad, so... Anyway, hopefully Thor Ragnarok will be better than that is. Based on this trailer, I would have to say so. But it's not just because the Hulk is in it, and that's the really important distinction that I wanted to make, and the trailer is the thing that cemented that for me, because that's the thing that I was concerned about. I was like, am I just gonna... You know, I like Thor, obviously, and one thing I will say is that Chris Hemsworth as Thor is one of my favorite elements of the MCU, and in every single movie and scene he's in, he brings his swagger to it, and I like his swagger, and he always, and because his swagger is there, I'm always more into it. Wow, that sounds fucking homoerotic. Despite that, though, the Thor movies, Thor and Thor the Dark World, both fine films. I've seen them both more than once willingly, but I don't really remember a lot about them, and I don't particularly love them. But I really love him in them, of course, and Tom Hiddleston is Loki, obviously, as well, although he really came to life for me in the Avengers. In the original Thor, he was just kind of okay. But Avengers really sold me on Loki. And then he's really great in Thor the Dark World, but that's really because he's very consistent with what they did with him in Avengers. Wow, my cats are just being total assholes. Fuck them. So anyway, I like Thor, but I'm not like, oh my god, a new Thor movie is coming out. That's gonna rock my world. No. So the fact that the Hulk was in it was really the thing that initially sold me. And now I've seen this trailer, and I'm really sold on the Thor stuff as well. Because what I like about Thor always has been, he's aware of Earth, he's aware of humanity and human customs, but he also is familiar with and has roots in this cosmic space Marvel deity royal family. And because of that, he's able to walk in both worlds and able to reflect traits from both worlds. And that makes him really interesting as a superhero. Or he's not even really a superhero. He kind of is. But he's not like a traditional, 9-to-5 superhero, I guess. Because he's usually off in space doing stuff like we see in this movie. In the comics, anyway. At least what I'm that's the thing. Not a Thor fan, never read the comics, but based on what I see from the stuff I skim in the comic book store and then don't buy, he's usually off in space fucking up monsters and shit. And that's what this looks like to me. Also, it's got Jeff Goldblum in it, and he's a guy off in space fucking around doing stuff, and he's gonna fucking do some shit with Thor, so I'm into that as well. I mean, what's not to like in this thing? So, and that's the thing, like, Hulk's only in the little end bit as well. Like, the rest of it is just Thor and setting up the Thor stuff. Although, all of the stuff on the other planet that Thor gets dropped on after whatever happens on Asgard happens and whatever happens with Cate Blanchett's character happens. It looks like that's where the Jeff Goldblum and Valkyrie and Karl Urban is also in this movie, so I think he's going to come in there. Maybe not. He might actually be an Asgard thing, although I doubt it based on what he looks like, because he looks like something that would come from Sakaar, which is the planet that Thor gets dropped onto. And if you know anything about Marvel Comics, Sakaar is where Hulk was sent to by the Illuminati back in like 2007, 2008. I don't know. That's when I was reading Hulk comics, and that's when that happened. after they were like, he's too dangerous to be left on Earth. We're going to send him to another planet where he can't kill anybody, and he'll live out his days in peace. It turned out to fail. They locked Hulk in a satellite and tossed him into space after he tried to save the world, too. Fucking dickheads, the Illuminati were. And he ended up on the planet of Sakaar in the comics, which was run by somebody named the Red King in the comics. It's been a long time since I've read Planet Hulk. I don't remember the details of that dude's backstory and what exactly his name was or whatever. I think maybe intelligently they've decided to weave the Thor villainy into the Sakaar stuff, which I think is clever, because the Red King in the comics is interesting, but he's sort of he's an archetype and designed to fill a very specific role in that story for the Hulk to go up against, and for the other characters to sort of react to. So you can easily take another pre-existing character and then mold them into that, and then do something more interesting with them potentially, because they already have that pre-existing backstory that isn't this clear archetype that the Red King is. I mean, come on, he's called the Red King. I can't even remember his real name. So I think Grandmaster, who I also know nothing about, although played by Jeff Goldblum, so I know lots about Jeff Goldblum, so I think I'm good there. So probably a more intelligent role to put there, because he will, bring with him all this other interesting backstory from the Thor world, which can then be sort of lorded over the Hulk, which will be interesting. So that's also why I'm really excited about this, because the Hulk will sort of be my viewpoint, I imagine, into this Thor world, even if he's not in a whole lot of it. But the contextualization of why he's there will make, connecting to the Thor stuff and enjoying the Thor stuff a lot more, a lot clearer, I guess. And I'm not saying that I have any pre-existing disposition against Thor or anything. It's just that usually the stuff I've seen him in, I'm like, I like him, I just don't like this. Just the story of this. And that's just because I'm not a fantasy guy. I'm not a royal drama guy, I guess. So, I don't know. Although I'm excited about Black Panther. So, I guess I am kind of a royal drama guy. Or I'm becoming one with these Marvel superhero movies anyway. But that also doesn't really look like the crux of this Thor movie. That looks like sort of the backstory for him to sort of get us to where he is now on Sakaar. And I also, by the way, that's another brilliant move to replace. If you've never read Planet Hulk, which is what they're sort of mixing with a bunch of other Thor stories in this to create Thor Ragnarok the movie, Silver Surfer was also taken in by the Red King as a gladiator to fight in these, public, entertaining gladiatorial combat between all these super beings that landed on this planet. I know I'm doing a shit job of explaining Planet Hulk, by the way, but if you haven't read Planet Hulk, you should. It's one of my favorite Hulk stories, if not my favorite Hulk story, and it's fucking great. Greg Pak, written in the mid-2000s, height of Marvel's doing good shit. So, well, that's just my perception of it. The rest of it could have been garbage, but I really liked the Hulk stuff they were doing at the time, so go give it a read, kids. But Silver Surfer was in that as a gladiator as well and fought the Hulk. And in that, Silver Surfer was mind-controlled, if I remember correctly, and was just or not mind-controlled, but just sort of all he could do was fight. That was all his body was relegated to do. And he was called the Silver Savage, if I remember correctly. And I imagine that there's what they're sort of doing is swapping out Thor for Silver Surfer by having the big Marvel character that Hulk recognizes in the gladiatorial games, because the rest of the people that he fights are all just weird monsters from space. That person would be Thor. So that's cool. And that makes a lot of sense. There are other versions of Planet Hulk that have done similar things, like the animated version of Planet Hulk, which I don't like at all. One cool thing they did, though, was they have Beta Ray Bill, who's a character from the Thor lore that I'm familiar with. He's this big horseman that has the powers of Thor. He's kind of cool. He was replaced. He replaced the Silver Surfer in that story because they didn't have the rights to the Silver Surfer. That's still owned by Fox, which is why Silver Surfer won't be appearing in Thor Ragnarok. But again, Thor himself will be filling that role, whereas Beta Ray Bill filled that role in Planet Hulk. And you already have should mention this as well, an inbuilt excuse to put Thor into a Planet Hulk adaptation, because in the original Planet Hulk graphic novel, well, I guess in the run, it's not really a graphic novel, but I read it as a graphic novel. Thor fights off some like stone Goliaths towards the beginning. And apparently this happened in like a really old Thor comic. Like there were just like these stone creatures that appeared on Asgard, and he fought them off. Not with Beta Ray Bill. They put that in the animated version. But one of the combatants that Hulk meets and starts to work with and build a relationship with very slowly, in the comics and in the animated movie is a character named Korg, who is this big rock man, who we've actually already seen species from in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They're these big, like, they're orange in the comics, they're gray in the movies, or maybe Korg in the movie will be gray, orange rather, I hope he is. I always wondered if that was supposed to be a reference to the Thing from the Fantastic Four, because he and the Hulk always had a disagreeable relationship, and they always had like this, or they always sort of had this friendly rivalry, I guess. They were always sort of like the Goku and Vegeta of the Marvel Universe. So I don't know if they'll do that. They might make him gray to avoid comparisons to the Thing, because, Fantastic Four is not in everybody's best graces right now. So I don't know. And they already did the gray thing, so they might be consistent with that. But orange is, it stands out better, obviously, and it just looks cooler. The gray rock design in Thor Ragnarok, Thor the Dark World, kind of didn't stand out, because it was just a rock monster. I had to look at it for a second and go, oh, that's supposed to be like Korg from Planet Hulk. That's cool. Because, again, in Planet Hulk, Korg explains that, me and my buddies, we went to this other planet, Asgard, and we fought off these insane beings, who fucking we were trying to steal shit from, and they just fucked us up. It was horrifying, these horrible monsters. And Hulk sort of goes, Thor? In his head, he doesn't say anything. And then they sort of move on with telling their backstories. But that's the idea. So you take a bunch of Marvel alien races that have encountered these superheroes before, and you throw them into a bunch of gladiatorial battles with the Hulk. And that's why Thor makes sense to put in there instead of the Silver Surfer, and that's why it makes sense to have Thor in there at all, because he's already been grandfathered in by the reference to him in the original comics. So I think this all just works wonderfully. And again, just based on the trailer alone, I have no reason to suspect that the film will not execute that very awesome concept just as awesomely. Which, I don't know if that's an official word, but you know what? If it's not, it is now, because I fucking said it. So, what else should I discuss? Just the imagery of what things look like. The whole movie looks amazing. This is a big-budget Disney Marvel Studios production, so there's no doubt that it's going to have all the pinnacle state-of-the-art CGI and wardrobe and makeup and actors and relationships between the cast and crew that will make for effective narrative and effective blockbuster storytelling. So I have no doubt about that. But the actual pace of the narrative and everything, it's going to be pretty loaded. That's one thing that a lot of people have been like, will this be too much? Who knows? They're doing Planet Hulk, the Thor Ragnarok storyline. They're doing Surtur, who's a Thor villain that I don't know a lot about. He was mentioned a lot in Avengers Assemble. Not Avengers Assemble. Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes, which was a cartoon that I watched around the time that Avengers came out. So I know things about him. I know that he's a big deal. I know that he's one of the big bads of the Thor world. So I know he's involved in this. So that's another big thing. You got Grandmaster, obviously, Jeff fucking Goldblum. That's a big thing. You got Loki running Asgard from, if you watched Thor: The Dark World, you would know that that's a thing. And then you've got Cate Blanchett as Hela, destroying Mjolnir, in the first 2 minutes of the trailer, 2 seconds, right? The trailer isn't even 2 minutes long, which was also nice. It was really short, and I still have no idea what the actual movie is gonna feel like, watching it. So, I'm in, man. I'm totally in. So, it's gonna be loaded, though. So I just hope that they balance all that shit out right, and that Thor, throughout it, is maintained as a compelling and likable protagonist, because otherwise, we're just going to be lost. But again, you have the Hulk in there, I'll certainly be happy. In terms of his role in this, and the Planet Hulk stuff getting its due, I don't really care. Like, even if it's all just sort of vague and like they change everything, as long as Hulk is there, and as long as they don't completely just disembowel what Planet Hulk was about. And I mean, Planet Hulk is not this super complex masterpiece. It's just a damn fun Hulk story that really digs deep into the character's roots and as well as his psychology. And that's why I like it. I don't even need this to do that. Because he's not the protagonist. Save that for a solo Hulk thing if we ever get that again. Which I'd like to at least get one with Ruffalo as Bruce Banner. Because if we don't, I'll be really sad. Because he's definitely my favorite big screen. Big screen. That's an old timey like kids term. Like big screen. My favorite, theatrical Bruce Banner. So I'd like to see him get his due in a solo Hulk movie. But this likely will probably be the closest thing we get to that outside of what I really liked in Age of Ultron. I really liked what they did with him in Age of Ultron. I thought that was fucking awesome. And what they've sort of done with him is they've done this really clever blend of the comic book version with the TV show version, because his personality and his relationship with the other Avengers is sort of like if Bill Bixby's David Banner was thrown into a big budget, more comic accurate Marvel universe. And I like that because Bill Bixby was like the shit when I was a kid. Like I fucking loved that show. So I mean, that's again just based on my own personal sensibilities. All this shit just works for me. So then add in the comic book stuff that I always read as a kid and was always like sad that the TV show never delved into. And boom, I'm in. I mean, like, this is my perfect blend of Marvel Universe stuff I've been waiting to see since I was a kid. And in fact, I'll say this real quick too. When I was a kid, I was hugely into the Hulk TV show. One of the return to TV movies that they did for the old Hulk show was a crossover between Thor and Hulk. And one thing that they did in that I always liked was that they separated Donald Blake from Thor. I never liked in the comics that Thor, because I've read Thor and Avengers, was Donald Blake, crippled physician, and then he would tap his magic stick and he would become Thor. I never understood and delved into the backstory enough to get why an ordinary Earthman could transform into like this ancient, Norse god. Like, how do you reconcile the differences in their memories and personalities? Like how does that work? I like the way the TV show handled it, where a guy finds the hammer, wakes up Thor, and then Thor does things for him as like this sacred vow in order to get into Valhalla. I always loved that. I mean, I'm not saying that I wanted the MCU to do that, because what they did is the best of both worlds. And they just did the Norse mythological version of Thor in a Marvel Universe context. I really think that, again, blend that with the Hulk like that old TV show did, and I'm in, man. That's some cool shit to me, because the fight between Thor and Hulk in that old TV show, even though it's incredibly slow and garbage by today's standards, when I was a kid, that was all we had. That was the shit. I mean, that wasn't all we had. Like, there were big budget superhero movies when I was a kid, but there wasn't a fight like that though. When I was young, I never saw Thor and Hulk fight in a big budget context. There was one episode of the animated Hulk show where Thor and Hulk crossed over. They briefly fight in that. It's just as garbage as the old TV show, because nobody throws a punch. There's no weight to the fight. Like that's what we've been missing in a live action or just in motion in general version of Thor versus Hulk, which also is not the only reason why I'm excited to see them together in this, or the only reason I'm excited to see this movie. Like, I need to see them fight, because that's all this trailer really sets up. They don't really get into the down and dirty of what exactly Hulk's doing there, what Bruce Banner's relationship to this gladiatorial combat is. Has he even turned back into Bruce Banner since he's been on Sakaar? All this different stuff. We're gonna find out, obviously. But all this trailer sets up is that he and Thor are going to fight in the arena, which is obviously the big show-stopping moment, which is cool. That's obviously all you need in a trailer. You're just trying to get butts in seats, and it has certainly worked because people have just been freaking out online over it. But I don't need to see Thor and Hulk fight. I would like to see it again because, again, I have those nostalgic memories from being a kid, and that fight between Thor and Hulk being one of my favorite things ever because it was the closest thing we had to like a big budget superhero fight. I was like, I'm certainly in based on that, but we already saw Thor and Hulk fight in Avengers. I don't need to see that again. And the fight there is certainly limited because, you know, that was early MCU, but it was like, you know, that was the MCU still getting its shit into gear. I mean, do you remember that Captain America costume? Oof, thank God we're beyond that. So that was certainly like still Marvel finding their footing in this thing, and the fight there is a little limited. It's good, and it gets better, but they're fighting inside of a helicarrier, so it's not like it's a little limited based on that. And sure, they're just gonna fight in an arena, presumably in this, but that's still better than inside of like offices and shit. So I'm still excited based on that. They'll hopefully get a better fight than in the Avengers. But again, I'm not in based on that. I need a little more to be totally sold on this whole thing and to be really to really properly love it. So I imagine though, based on what I'm seeing, we're gonna get some cool shit because I'm intrigued to find out all the dirty details I don't know. And I have absolute faith in Taika Waititi. Oh God, his name is so hard to pronounce out loud. I've only done it a handful of times. I'm really excited to see what he does with these characters, based on what I know about him as a filmmaker, and based on what I see from this trailer tonally from him. It looks awesome, and all the things I've heard in production. It just, I'm gushing. It looks amazing. So I can't wait. I just wanted to do a quick 22-minute video on that. So, but before I leave you, just one last quick announcement before I go. The next episode of the Demons from Outer Space is, as I announced in the Power Rangers video I did a couple days ago, it's going to be a podcast about stand-up comedy, and we're going to be discussing a couple of specific stand-up comedy specials in that to discuss the grander topic as a whole. But it's not going to be recorded until this upcoming Thursday, so it's going to be delayed a little bit. So in the interim, I will finally be putting up part 2 of Dylan and I's 10 awesome classic science fiction films, like, you know, which is also pretty much our top 5 favorite science fiction films of all time. So you're going to get 2 more discussions by Dylan and I about science fiction movies that we like a lot that came out before Star Wars, as well as a new DFOS in the coming days as well. So that one that video is going to go up as like a placeholder for the DFOS that we were supposed to do this past weekend, but didn't because we weren't caught up on all the stand-up comedy we had to watch. So that's why everything is going as it's going. So look out for that. Those 2 things in the coming days as well. Also, obviously, we're going to do a new SOS this weekend as well. So you can get excited about that too, if you're so inclined. So until next time, everyone, I am Bill Worster, a.k.a. Zazubar, and I am reminding you to watch where your hammers go, kids, because a woman might break them, and then you're going to be stuck in a shady, junk-filled place with Jeff Goldblum selling your body into entertainment. So, watch out, kids. Sayonara.